This is a prayer for the ones who pick us up when we fall down. Remember the bike tires kicking out from under you, the branch of the tree giving way. Remember the ice on the ground, and then gravity, faster and more insistent than you ever imagined. And then you were on the ground with skinned knees and elbows and hands. It wasn't until you saw them that you started weeping. Do you remember that? You were holding it in up until that moment. You were okay. And something about making eye contact with them is what allowed the tears to begin to flow. It's not because you were afraid of them, quite the opposite. Not because they were angry or disappointed in you, not at all. It's because it was safe to cry in their presence. They loved you enough that you could weep with them. So blessed are those who hold us when we weep. This is a prayer for the ones who invited us into wonder, who took us out in the darkness well past our bedtimes and showed us the stars, all those points of light up in the sky, and pointed out how you could draw imaginary lines between them and see people and things, how the stars, if you knew which ones to look for, would tell you where you were, which way was north, who showed you the great road running across the sky, the Milky Way. And this is a prayer as well for those in a different darkness who showed you what happens when you get two stones of the right kind and you smack them together. Sparks fly, fireworks, very opposite of the immensity of the night sky. This is the tininess of two rocks in the dark. You'd seen sparks before when your dad made a mistake doing electrical work, when you watched at certain construction sites, but never stones. Stones before were always still and heavy and hard. If this was possible, what else was possible? And this is a prayer as well for those who in a different darkness cut into it by turning on a desk lamp and opening a book and invited you into a world of heroes and princesses and dragons, adventures you've never dreamed of. If all of this was waiting in paper, what kind of a wonderful world might this be? So blessed are those who call us into amazement. This is a prayer as well for those who challenge us, those who tell us hard and important and unwelcome truths. You are never going to play sports for money. You're probably never going to be a rock star. During the time when you are alive, when you have a body and your body is the same thing as you for this time on your earth, you have limitations. The biggest limitation being you will die. These are the people who challenged us by asking us, demanding us to stretch, to learn, to be better. Sometimes they would challenge us by losing their temper. It was hot, it came at you fast, your hair flew back. Sometimes it was just a look they would give you and you knew. Sometimes it was just their disappointment. How many of us have spoken the words, "It was harder when they were disappointed than when they were angry"? Now, to be clear, this is not a prayer for people who were cruel to us, not at all. These are the people who loved us enough to challenge us to be different, to be more, to grow, to be who God called us to be. These are people who understood that the opposite of love is indifference, and they refused to be indifferent to us. So blessed are those who push us further into life. This is a prayer for those whom we have never met, but who gave us gifts anyway. Our grandparents' grandparents, who we know only via story and via some really old photographs or a name, perhaps, in a family tree. And then even further back, our grandparents, people who it's hard to believe even existed. They feel fictional. They feel like the stuff of myth, but they really lived. They had hopes and dreams and loves and griefs just like us, and they carried life across the years and gave it to us. Sometimes you see a holy echo across the years. You will look at a very old photograph and see yourself looking back. Time travel is real. I lived in 1890. So blessed are our ancestors. This is a prayer for those who taught us, those who showed us how to sharpen knives and tie bowlines, and who taught us the chemistry of the kitchen. It's a prayer for those who showed us how to shake hands and make eye contact and say the important words, "It's nice to meet you." They're the ones who taught us about music, who showed us the lines on the piece of paper and how they could turn into song, who invited us to discover instruments, perhaps including the instrument of our own voice, who showed us the wonder waiting in textbooks and in overhead projectors, who invited us into discovery, who loved us by teaching us. Blessed are our teachers. All of these prayers are for the people who, in Mr. Rogers' words, loved us into being. These are the people who wanted the best for us and who taught us and gave us gifts and helped us find our way through life. Some of them are older than us, but some are younger. Jesus is right when he says there are things children understand about the kingdom of God that grown-ups cannot. Some of the people who loved you into being may be in this room right now. Some may be far away. And on this day, the Sunday after All Souls and All Saints, we remember in particular those who are dead. In the Christian tradition, we say that we are resurrection people, that resurrection sits at the core of our faith. And by that, we mean that the people who loved us into being and whom we see no more are in that mystery that we call heaven. That's right. And we also mean by resurrection that we sometimes catch a glimpse of them still. Sometimes you'll be walking down a path through the woods, or perhaps in a space like this one, maybe alone, maybe with other people, and you'll have the sense that they are near. It's like you can turn around at an empty space in a pew and see them sitting there. Sometimes we're just going about our day in the kitchen, opening mail, doing whatever, the tasks of daily life. And we'll have the sense they are nearby. We will say, "Oh, hi." So we mean that as well. But we mean still another thing by resurrection, and that is that the people who have loved us into being are written into our very bodies, into our minds, into our souls. When we speak, words that they taught us come out. When we take actions, we are using the tools and the learnings that they taught us. When we navigate the complexity of life, we're using the values that they gave us. Sometimes you'll know a colleague or a friend, and you will meet their parent or their child, and you will be amazed at how much the parent or the child looks like your friend. I don't know why we're amazed. I mean, who else should they look like? But it's amazing anyway. And then if you have a conversation, you will notice that it's not just a physical resemblance, but this parent or child, they have the same mannerisms. They pause at the same spot. They laugh in the same way. We are, all of us, that parent or that child. We are all of us shaped by the people who have loved us into being. When we cook, their spices are in our foods. So this is a prayer of thanksgiving on this Sunday after All Souls and All Saints. Thank you. Thank you for the people who held us when we wept. Thank you to the people who showed us wonder. Thank you to the people who loved us enough to challenge us. Thank you to our ancestors who carried life across the years and gave it to us. And now we carry it for a while and will hand it to our descendants. Thank you to our teachers, all of them and still more, who loved us into being. On this day, we proclaim resurrection. We say thanks be to God for all these people, for all the saints who from their labors rest, and whose labors now we carry on.